So here we are. We're about 2 weeks into the project, a little over 10 days, I guess, maybe 10, 12 days. And we now got 3 walls. We got our back wall, side wall, front wall, finished the floor, got some insulation underneath. You probably last time I talked was maybe 3, 4 days into the project, and I was really excited about how far I'd gotten with the floor and things like that. There are a lot of things that I knew. I built a house before. I knew that things take longer than they normally you'd expect, and that's just something to kind of keep in mind as you start this project. You're going to run into hurdles, things that take a little bit longer than you think, and those can go anything from the weather, like right now, beautiful sunny sky you can see, but the last couple of days it's been snowy, 19 degrees out, things like that. This is kind of weather you can work in. But if it's raining and snowy, you may not want to let your beautiful floor get too wet, because then it will swell. You'll get cracks in it, or not cracks, but seams, especially with this 2x4, or I guess it's 2x6 tongue and groove that we put in down here. The water will make it swell. It'll push against each other, the boards that are next to it, and then you'll get seams in between your tongue and groove material. So trying to keep it dry. Also, you're not motivated to work in the cold and the rain. So that's one aspect that could delay you. Other aspects are unforeseen technical issues, things like that. We are custom building a house on top of this trailer. Trailers aren't meant to have houses on top of them. Houses aren't meant to be built on trailers. This is all custom. And so there are certain things with measurements, with materials. How are you going to attach 2x material to a metal, basically metal studs, metal cross beams. Coming up with useful and long-term solutions for each one of these little problems, keeping in mind that you're going to be building this up on a moving object. It's going to be shaking, wind gusts, things like that. Keeping it strong, keeping it attractive, and keeping it light. So all those things play into it, and you have to, each step you come across, you're going to have to adapt to those. Other things that can slow you down, materials. Do you already know what you want? We went ahead and went with 2x3 studs for our walls. Typical building materials be 2x4s, 2x6s and such. We're building this place in Salt Lake City, so luckily they do provide at Home Depot 2x3 studs. This gives us some good sturdiness, but also cuts back a little bit on weight. It is going to limit the amount of insulation we have, but this is a pretty small place, so we're not too worried about that. Even though you can probably Google to find out that smaller interior volumes allow for greater heat loss. So there is a bit of a trade-off there, but we're going to be nice and toasty in this place anyways. So, keep into account weather can slow you down, access to materials can slow you down, and the big one, money can slow you down. If you get 4 walls on and all the siding on, your windows in, but you haven't bought your metal roof and you run out of money, man, you're in trouble. So knowing how much money you have, knowing your cost of all your building materials, from glues to screws to 2x4s, 2x3s, roofing material, it all is going to add up. And if you run out of that resource, you're going to be delayed more. So having access to materials and money, good weather, all those kind of things can play into delaying your project. Now, once you get that floor down, though, you can see the walls went up. This is 2 days worth of work for all 3 of these walls. We're not even done today. Walls go up pretty quick once you know what you want. Oh, and that's another thing. Be sure to design out your place down to the foot, down to the inch, before you get started on the walls, because you're going to want to know where your windows go. You can see over here, we've got 2x4 windows that we put in. And we got a door over here. So an entry door here. If you don't plan that out beforehand, then you're in trouble. So those are some things to keep in mind. We're on day probably 12, 13, and we got 3 walls up.